All right, so like I said in the last video, I'm going to show you exactly what you need in order to solve by finding the square roots. So if you notice, you have a table here on the whiteboard. If you think back a few weeks ago, I made you write all the perfect squares down on your notes because you needed to use them or know them when you were doing the special cases, factoring the special cases. Well, we have a similar table that we need for this section, but it's a little different. Instead of knowing the perfect squares, we need to know the square roots. Now, perfect squares and square roots are opposites of one another. They're inverses. They cancel each other out, like adding and subtracting do or multiplying and dividing do. Square roots and squares, they're partners, but they're opposites. So one of the things that you're going to learn, and we're going to write down our steps in a second, is that you're going to have to identify the perfect squares in your problem to get your final answer. So in order to identify them, you have to know them. So one of the things that I want you to do real quick on the side of your notes, and I know you have space because I made the notes, you got space there on the side. Go ahead and make you a table, and actually let's name this perfect square roots, because we want to know the perfect squares, the ones that give us the nice, pretty whole numbers. Now, if you have a calculator, the calculator will tell you whether you have a perfect square or not. If you get decimals when you take the square root of a number, that's not a perfect square. But these first 12 numbers, you should know by heart. And like I said, we're kind of going in the opposite of what we did a few weeks ago. These were your answers a few weeks ago when you had to write your perfect square. So when you set them equal to get the square root, they're going to be the numbers that you started off with. So let's go ahead and fill it in real quick. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 121 is 11. And square root of 144 is 12. So you see what I mean, how we have the numbers that we started off with are on the other side. Now there's one more aspect of square roots that I'm not going to include right now because I just want you to have a basic table. But when we solve in a minute, it will come in. There's something that's missing in front of all these numbers, but I'll show that to you when it's time to actually work some problems. So now what I'd like to do is jump back to where your notes are and let me give you the steps to solve a quadratic equation using these numbers, okay? So first thing you're going to do is you have to isolate the squared variable. Okay, so if it's x squared, t squared, p squared, you've got to get that all by itself. So what that means is we're going to have x squared is equal to something, all right, on the other side. That's what I mean by isolate. Now, what we need to do to get to this point is basic algebra that you learned first quarter. So I'm going to be really hard on you guys if I have to remind you how to combine your like terms and how to change the sign when you go on the other side of the equal sign. If you mess all that up, then your answer is going to be wrong. So we're trying to get to this step right here. Now, once you get to that step, the second thing you need to do is take the square root. And when I say square root, I mean you're going to do this. That's the square root symbol. You're going to take the square root on both sides of the equation. Let's underline both sides of the equation because that's going to be important. All right. Now, why do you have to take both sides of the equation, the square root on both sides? Because whatever you do on the left, you have to do on the right. It's just like when we were, solving equations. If you subtract on one side, you got to subtract on the other. So you've got to do both sides or it's going to be wrong. Now, one last thing before we jump into examples. You've got a problem. Well, actually, I'll save that for the next video. We're going to talk about the number of solutions.